The Thing is now hailed as one of the greatest horror films ever made. But in 1982, it was a flop so brutal it broke John Carpenter's heart. Did you know he shot a happier alternate ending and refused to use it? Or that its groundbreaking creatures were designed by a 22-year-old who worked himself into the hospital? 14 facts, starting with the ending. 14. The alternate ending that proved. MacReady was human. The Thing's iconic ending is pure ambiguity. MacReady and Childs, the last two survivors, sit in the burning ruins of the camp, each possibly the alien, neither able to prove the other is human, waiting to freeze to death or worse. It's one of the great unresolved endings in cinema, but Carpenter actually shot an alternate, hopeful conclusion, one that answered the question. In that version, Kurt Russell's MacReady is shown having survived the ordeal, safe in an office-style setting, receiving a blood transfusion that proves he's not infected. Reassurance. Closure. When the first previews were held, Carpenter decided against even testing that upbeat ending on audiences, feeling he'd already achieved exactly what he set out to do. He kept the bleak, unresolved version. History proved him right. That haunting ambiguity is a huge part of why the film endures and why fans still debate it. He had the safe ending in his hand. He chose despair. 13. The 22-year-old effects genius worked himself into the hospital. The Thing's legendary creature effects, heads sprouting spider legs, chests opening into fanged maws, came from Rob Bottin, who was just 22 years old when he designed them. Bottin threw himself into the work with almost superhuman intensity, effectively living on set. He drove himself so relentlessly, reportedly working non-stop, barely sleeping or eating, hoarding the work rather than delegating, that his health collapsed entirely. By the end of production, the exhausted young artist was hospitalized for exhaustion, pneumonia, and a bad reaction to medication. The workload grew so overwhelming that Bottin recruited the legendary Stan Winston to help complete some designs. Winston handled the famous kennel sequence where the Thing assimilates the sled dogs. Bottin's obsessive, self-destructive dedication produced some of the most jaw-dropping practical effects ever filmed, and defined a career. But the human cost was real. A 22-year-old prodigy who quite literally worked himself sick, creating monsters the world would never forget. 12. E.T. destroyed it at the box office. 2 weeks earlier. The Thing's commercial failure has one enormous, ironic cause: another alien. Just 2 weeks before Carpenter's film opened, Steven Spielberg released E.T. the Extraterrestrial, a warm, tender, family-friendly story about a lovable alien who befriends a child. It became a cultural phenomenon and a massive hit, flooding the country with affection for benevolent extraterrestrials. Then came The Thing, the grimmest, most paranoid, most nihilistic alien film imaginable, where the alien horrifically murders and impersonates everyone. Carpenter himself pinpointed this as the killer. Audiences in 1982, in the middle of a recession, wanted the hug, not the horror. And his film was, in his words, the exact opposite of E.T. Critics savaged it as gratuitously gory and empty. It earned only around $20 million. 11. The music sounds like Carpenter, but it's Ennio Morricone. Here's a fact that surprises even devoted fans. The Thing's spare, pulsing, dread-soaked score wasn't composed by John Carpenter, who famously scored most of his own films. It was written by Ennio Morricone, the Italian maestro behind The Good, The Bad, and The Ugly, and dozens of classics. Carpenter wanted a European sensibility and flew to Rome to convince him. But here's the twist. Morricone, unsure what Carpenter wanted, composed multiple full scores, orchestral, synthesizer, and combined. Carpenter selected a minimalist synth piece that sounds so much like his own work that most viewers assume he wrote it. It's a fascinating collaboration, one of cinema's greatest composers deliberately writing in another director's style. Much of Morricone's unused music sat in a vault for decades, until Quentin Tarantino resurrected it for his own snowbound thriller, The Hateful Eight, decades later. So Morricone effectively scored two Kurt Russell Arctic ensembles, one in 1982, one in 2015, from the same sessions. 10. The chest jaw scene used a real amputee. One of the thing's most infamous moments. The chest jaw, or defibrillator scene, where a man's chest splits open into a giant fanged mouth that bites off the doctor's arms, was achieved with a genuinely ingenious practical trick. To sell the horrifying image of a man with no arms, the production cast a real double amputee, then fitted him with a fake torso and a mold of actor Richard Dysart's face and hands. When the chest mouth chomps down and the arms, limbs on a man who genuinely had none, which is why it looks so shockingly real. It's the kind of resourceful, uncompromising, practical effect that defines the entire film. Carpenter was terrified of ending up with a guy in a suit like other monster movies. Instead, Botton's team engineered horrors so tactile and physical they still make audiences recoil. Real biology, real amputee, real revulsion. No CGI could fake that visceral wrongness. 9. Carpenter hid the identity of the first infected man on purpose. Watch the film's opening closely, and you'll spot a deliberate mystery. Early on, when the alien-infected sled dog wanders into the camp and slips into a room, we glimpse the shadow of a man inside. One of the crew, secretly assisting or being assimilated. Carpenter wanted to keep the identity of that shadowy figure a permanent, unsolvable mystery. So he made a clever choice. He didn't use any of the actual cast members to cast that shadow. It's an anonymous, uncredited person, ensuring no viewer could ever match the silhouette to a character. It's a small but telling detail of the film's obsessive paranoia. Carpenter seeding ambiguity so deep that even a shadow becomes a clue you can never fully solve. The entire movie is about not knowing who is human, and Carpenter extended that uncertainty into the filmmaking itself. Decades later, fans still analyze that shadow frame by frame, exactly as he intended. The mystery has no answer. 8. The whole film is a puzzle you can solve. Carpenter left clues. The Thing is famous for never definitively telling you who's infected and when. But Carpenter and writer Bill Lancaster didn't leave it to random chance. They constructed a genuine, internally consistent logic to the assimilations, planting subtle clues about who gets taken over and precisely when throughout the film. Details like whose clothing is torn, who's alone at key moments, and the results of the blood test all fit a coherent, hidden timeline. The movie rewards obsessive rewatching because there's an actual solvable mystery underneath the chaos. This is why The Thing has generated decades of forensic fan analysis. People mapping exactly when MacReady, Palmer, Norris, and the others were assimilated. Carpenter has been coy about confirming answers, preferring the ambiguity, but the clues are demonstrably there. It elevates the film from a simple monster movie into an intricate paranoia puzzle. Most horror films fall apart under scrutiny. The Thing was engineered to reward it, hiding a second film beneath the first. Quick blood test. If you're still human, and this deep dive is earning it, hit like and subscribe, because we dissect a classic every week. Now, back to the ice. Starting with the dog that steals the entire movie. 7. The dog was the real star, and gave a genuine performance. The Thing's most unsettling early presence isn't a person. It's a dog, the Norwegian sled dog that arrives at the American camp, secretly the alien in disguise, is played by a wolf-dog hybrid named Jed, and his performance is astonishing. Jed conveys an eerie, watchful intelligence, lingering in doorways, studying the men, radiating quiet menace long before the horror erupts. Carpenter and the crew singled out Jed's contribution as essential. The dog genuinely sells the idea that something inhuman is hiding in plain sight. Jed was trained by animal handler Clint Rowe, and his restrained, almost eerie stillness does more to build dread than any monster effect. It's a rare case of an animal performance carrying real dramatic weight in a horror film. Jed went on to appear in other films, including White Fang, but The Thing remains his masterpiece. Proof that sometimes the most disturbing thing on a screen is a dog simply watching you and knowing something you don't. 6. Kurt Russell nearly wasn't MacReady. And read the script late Kurt Russell's MacReady, the bearded, hard-drinking helicopter pilot who becomes the film's reluctant hero, is now iconic, but Russell almost didn't take it seriously. By his own account, he was offered the role and didn't even properly read the script until about 3 weeks to a month before filming, when Carpenter approached him and asked what he'd think about playing MacReady. Only then did Russell actually sit down with it, decided it would be a lot of fun, and committed. Russell and Carpenter already had a strong partnership from Elvis and Escape from New York, which is likely why the offer came so casually. But it's striking how close one of horror's great heroes came to being someone else entirely. Russell brought a laconic, world-weary cool to MacReady that grounds the film's mounting hysteria. That famous wide-brimmed hat and the flask of whiskey became part of the character. A man determined to take the whole thing down with him. 5. It's a faithful adaptation of a 1938 novella. Unlike the 1951 original, The Thing is often called a remake of the 1951 classic The Thing from Another World, a film Carpenter adored as a child and directly references in his own movie. But Carpenter's version is actually far more faithful to the original source material. John W. Campbell Jr.'s 1938 novella, Who Goes There? The 1951 film changed the monster into a lumbering, humanoid, intellectual carrot. A man in a suit. Campbell's novella, by contrast, featured a shape-shifting alien that could perfectly imitate any living thing, spreading paranoia through a polar camp. Carpenter went back to that terrifying original concept, making his film a truer adaptation than the beloved 1951 version. The paranoia, the assimilation, the who is still human, horror, all of it comes straight from Campbell's 1938 story. So while it's remembered as a remake, The Thing is better understood as a long-delayed, faithful adaptation, finally putting Campbell's genuinely horrifying shapeshifter on screen the way he imagined it. 4. A video game is the film's official canonical sequel. The Thing's ambiguous ending left fans desperate for answers. And one arrived from an unexpected medium. In 2002, a video game titled The Thing was released as a direct official sequel to the film, with John Carpenter's blessing and involvement. Carpenter even voiced a character. The game picks up shortly after the movie ends, following a military team sent to investigate the destroyed, frozen Antarctic camp. And it's considered canon, an actual continuation of the story rather than a spin-off. The game cleverly extended the film's core mechanic. Your NPC teammates could become infected and turn on you, so managing trust and paranoia was central to gameplay. For years, this game was the only sanctioned answer to what happened next, making it unusually significant for fans. It's a rare case of a video game serving as the official sequel to a classic film. And for a long time, the closest thing to closure The Thing ever offered. 3. Carpenter considers it his best, and its failure hurt him most. For John Carpenter, the director of Halloween, Escape from New York, and a dozen genre landmarks, The Thing holds a special place. He considers it his favorite and finest film, which makes its brutal 1982 reception all the more painful. Carpenter has said that of all his movies that struggled, The Thing's failure hit him the hardest. He'd poured everything into it, believed he'd made something great, and watched critics savage it and audiences reject it in favor of E.T. The blow was severe enough that it reportedly cost him a major opportunity. A planned adaptation of Stephen King's Firestarter fell away in the fallout. It's a poignant reminder that even masterpieces can be born in disappointment. Carpenter's faith in the film never wavered, and history vindicated him completely. The movie the world rejected became widely regarded as one of the greatest horror films ever made. But in 1982, its creator was left heartbroken by his own best work. 2. The blood test scene is one of horror's greatest sequences, the Thing's centerpiece. The blood test scene, where MacReady heats a wire and touches it to each man's blood to see which sample recoils and reveals itself as the alien, is routinely cited among the most suspenseful sequences ever filmed. The genius is its logic. It weaponizes the film's core premise, giving the paranoia a concrete, unbearable test. Everyone is tied up, everyone is a suspect, and the tension of watching each blood sample get tested, waiting to see which man is the monster, is almost physically excruciating. It works because the film earned it. By that point, trust has completely collapsed. The audience is as desperate as the characters to know who's human. When one sample finally leaps shrieking from the petri dish, the release is explosive. 1. The rejected flop that became a horror monument step back, and The Thing's journey is one of cinema's great redemption stories. Released to hostile reviews and a disappointing box office, dismissed as gratuitous and cold, it looked in 1982 like a career stumble. Yet, across the following decades, through cable, home video, and word of mouth, it was completely reappraised, and is now routinely ranked among the greatest horror and science fiction films ever made, a benchmark of practical effects artistry and sustained dread that modern filmmakers still study and chase. Its influence is everywhere. Every paranoid, isolated group with a hidden monster story owes it a debt, from video games to prestige TV. Rob Bottin's effects remain a high watermark no CGI has truly surpassed for sheer tactile horror. Those were 14 facts most fans have never heard about The Thing. Which one got you? The happy ending Carpenter buried, or the video game sequel? Test your blood in the comments. If this earned it, hit like, subscribe, and send it to the friend who still thinks Childs was The Thing. Until next time, why don't we just wait here for a little while? See what happens.